Hey guys, Corey with Camel ADV. We're going to do the install video tonight for the gut guard on the Ducati DesertX. Installation is very straightforward. The skid plate does work with a bunch of different crash bars, so we'll go through some of the typical mounting with different brands. We can't hit every single brand of crash bar. We don't all have them in-house, and it's not feasible to do a video showing every single one of them, but we'll give you tips on how to proceed with kind of the typical type crash bars. Installation is pretty quick and easy, nothing special needed, just basic hand tools. We'll get started and show you how it's done. So in the kit, of course, we have the skid plate itself. So this is 3/16 aluminum, welded inside and out and powder coated. The side stand protector, side stand safety switch protector. This is 1/4" aluminum, so it's quite beefy, lots of strength there. We've got some 3/8 aluminum mounting brackets. They go up to the solid frame, so it's not mounted on the motor itself. And a super beefy rear mounting bar. When we put the skid plate on, it is no longer compatible with center stand, so that is something to be aware of. So when you go to order your skid plate, you're going to have a couple of options in the drop down. The upper lugs for our mounting brackets are different depending on the crash bars that you're running. So the main difference, these are Hepco Becker. They're 22.5 mil across here, and basically everything else is 12 millimeter. So we do have the two options, so just make sure that you do pick the correct upper mounting option in the drop down. So this is something I haven't seen on any other bike. This mounting bolt goes into the oil pan drain plug. Very, very weird. Never seen it before. And then we're going to come over here. There's one here, one at the front, and two on the other side. So when you go to take off the skid plate and get the fasteners on the left-hand side of your bike, there will be a big plastic protector piece that goes over top of your side stand safety switch. Those 3 bolts need to be removed before you can get this one out. I pulled all the parts out yesterday to put the factory skid plate back on so we could do the install video. And so there's a bag with that protector plate and the factory nuts and bolts for the side, or for the skid plate, and I set it down and it just disappeared into the Bermuda Triangle that is the shop. So you'll have to use your imagination on that one. I don't have the protector to put it back on to show you, but it's just these 3 bolts, so we can get access to that one on the back. So there are 3 or 4 of these factory mounting tabs for the skid plate. The only one that you really need to take off is this one up by the oil sight glass. And the rest of them can stay on. If you do want to take these brackets off, you can. It's a little bit cleaner. Just be aware that these bolts on this front mount are very, very tight. They've got red Loctite on them, and even with a bit of heat, they're challenging to get out. So just be aware of that before you start. So we've got our rear mounting bracket. The angle that points upwards is the front. And then in your kit, there is an M12 bolt and an M10, both with matching washers. So on the right-hand side of the bike, we're going to put the M10. This is an M12 threaded hole. The M10 is going to go through those threads, so just be aware of that. There is a vial of blue Loctite that's in your kit. I'm not going to crack it open, I'm just going to use our big bottle here. So a little bit of dab of blue. The bracket goes on the back side, and you can start this bolt. And then we're going to go around to the other side and put the 12 mil bolt in. A little bit of blue Loctite. Slide it up. The point on this rear bracket is intended to sit up against the pad here that was for the center stand. So with the rear mount installed, we can head up and do the front V mounts. So on your bike here, in this frame pocket, there is a bolt, and it runs all the way to the other side. Generally, you don't need to put a bit on the bolt on this side. There's enough tension. If you just go to the other side, you can spin it out. But you may need to put a second ratchet, and maybe you need to reach over the seat to make sure that this wrench isn't spinning. We're going to go to the other side. I'm pretty sure that we can get it out without the second wrench. So on this side is a 15 mil socket, or a nut, sorry, with a 15 mil. We're going to prep our engine bolts before we drive the factory one out. So we're going to take some Loctite, put it on the threads here. Use a hammer and a punch to get the original bolt out. You may be able to do it this way. You can take a mallet or a hammer, just give this a light tap to slide it in. That rod goes through both sides of the frame and then through the motor, so it may take a little bit of a tap to get it through because things can misalign. When you take that bolt out, you don't want to leave it very long. It's actually holding the front of the motor up, so the motor can start to dip. It's not going to move very fast. I've never had a problem with it, but it is something to keep in mind. So we're going to go to the other side, same thing. We're going to put this coupler nut on here, put a little bit of blue Loctite. It's also worth mentioning that the pocket in the frame on this side is not round. It's got a flat bottom on it, so you're not going to be able to get a 17 mil socket on this side, which is why we put the Loctite on and slid it through from this direction. So we've got a little bit of blue Loctite in that coupler nut, and we're going to thread this in. So if you're using anything except Hepco Becker, you're going to use this bracket here with a smaller hole. If you're using Hepco Becker, you're going to use these guys. The brackets are pretty self-explanatory. This is the left-hand side of the bike. This bracket has got these notches in it, and that's for clearance with rad hoses. So you simply put these brackets on the back side. So we're going to take the M6x20, and then we're going to take our nylock nuts, and we're going to put them on the back side. So if you're not running any crash bars, you're going to take this 10 millimeter bolt and the washer, and you're going to put it through the mounting hole here. I'm going to dab a blue Loctite on that as well. I'm not going to, because we'll have this stuff off, because I'm going to show you a few different mounting options for different brands. So this is the left-hand side. It's got these two little cutouts here for clearance around the rad hoses. So just be aware of that when you're putting them on if you're curious which one goes where. It should say Ducati DesertX. And of course this one just says DesertX, and it's more of a vertical. So when you go to install the left-hand side, you're going to take this V, you're going to tip it a little bit this way, drop the lower leg behind the rad hoses, and then swing the upper end behind the tank, and then drop it down like that. And again, our M10 bolt with the flat washer. So I've looked at this on dozens of bikes. Everything clears with the notches that we have in here, but just have a look on your bike. Make sure that this hose isn't rubbing on this bracket. If it is, you can just loosen this hose clamp and give this hose a little bit of a turn just to get it into the notch. So there are 6 fasteners that hold the skid plate onto our mounting brackets. It is important that you get all 6 started before you tighten any of them 100%. Just a little bit of wiggling and things to get everything centered, and then you can snug everything up. We've got M8x16 flathead bolts here, and they're the rear mounts. A little bit of Loctite on them, and it's a 5 mil Allen. So we're just going to do these 2 finger tight, and then we can move up front. And because we left these upper bolts loose, they're going to pivot, which is what we need. Our M8x25 flatheads. Just slide that up, slide that in. We're going to go to the other side and do the same thing before we even add the nuts and washers behind here. So we've got all this stuff loose, and you want to just give this a light push if you need to get the bolt in. so. And then we're going to grab the flat washer and the M8 nylock. It's the easiest way to get this stuff started. I'm going to take our 13 mil wrench, put it on the nut on the back side, and turn the ratchet the right way. That always helps. We've got the same thing here, nut and washer. And we can come to the bottom here and tighten these. And then to finish off, we can come up and do the upper mounting bolts. And we're going to do the same on the other side. If your side stand safety switch gets whacked with a rock, it will kill your bike. If you're on a Japanese bike, most Japanese bikes anyway, you can take the two wires, twist them together, and get out. If you're on a European bike, it's not that simple. With a smashed side stand safety switch, you're toast and you're getting towed out unless you have a spare part or a dongle to replace it. So if you're riding off-road, I strongly recommend that you take it off. Be aware, of course, that you are able to ride away with your side stand down, which for some people is a problem. It's better that they keep the switch, but if you were confident riding without that switch, it is a good modification to make if you ride off-road. So we considered extending this tab so it would fit between the side stand and the spring and offer a little more protection underneath here. The problem with that is if we take a big hit on that piece ends up hitting the switch and cracking it, so it's not really a great option. If you decide to do this with the side stand in the upright position, you can take this out. This is the tab here. When you move the side stand, it rotates the switch. So this is the location that it needs to be in for your bike to run. So I just like to take this switch and the zip tie, run the zip tie through the center hole in the switch, and then through one of the slots here on the skid plate. Now keep in mind when you take the skid plate off to do an oil change, you're going to need to cut that zip tie. If you want, you can take your side stand switch and you can zip tie it underneath to a spot on the engine so that when you do take the oil pan off, you don't need to cut the zip tie and re-zip. So if you're using our gut guard with the OEM Ducati crash bars, it's very straightforward. So you're already going to have Ducati's engine bolt with the coupler nuts on each end installed in here. You're going to take your crash bars off, and then there's a spud. There's a second coupler nut, basically, that goes from the 12 mil fine thread out to a 10 mil. So you're going to put our bracket on, then you're going to put the Ducati coupler nut back on top of this, and then the crash bars simply stack on top. It's very straightforward. So this is install if you're using the SW Motec crash bars. So the SW Motec setup has a 44 mil spacer in the frame pocket on both sides. On the left-hand side, there's a 5 mil spacer that stacks on top. And on the right-hand side, there's a 10 mil spacer. Our brackets are 5 mil thick. So we're going to take the 5 mil spacer that was originally on the left-hand side. We're going to stack it on top of our spacer. We're going to take the engine bolt, put it through the crash bars, through the spacer, through our bracket. And then the whole thing goes through, And then we've got our bracket on this side, which is 5 millimeters, so that replaces the spacer that was here. And I'm going to tack that bolt in from the other side. And then the crash bar, the washer, and the nylock all go on just like they did before. I'm not going to go through the rest of the install for the crash bars because they're no different than they are from the factory. Everything is very straightforward. We're just concerned with the tie-in here at the motor. So that's the SW Motec. So the Hepco backer crash bars mount a bit differently than the other ones on the market. This is all one piece here. The other brands that I've seen, this is a spacer that butts into here. This is all one piece. So we can't put the mounting bracket for the skid plate between the two, so we had to go over top of this. So we have got a 22.5 mil hole, and the spud on the crash bar slides over it, and this gets pinched between the frame and the bigger section of the crash bar. And then the whole thing's tied together with this big bolt. So we're going to take this, depending on the thickness of the powder coating here and the thickness of the powder coating here, you might have to do some wiggling to get this on. You might want to take some sandpaper and thin this out a little bit. It's important that it's a tight fit, so we didn't want to make this bracket oversized. The tighter the fit, the better. So it just kind of places on there like that, and because of the spud, these crash bars sort of hold themselves in position. And they've got this big long bolt here. I'm actually going to put a little bit of grease on here because this guy's starting to rust. So like I said before, I don't like to leave the engine unsupported very long to get the bolt back in. We're going to go to the other side and slide the left-hand bracket in with the spud. And on this side, we can't put the spud through the hole and then slide the whole thing on. We've got to get this, part in here first. And when you're pushing that in, you want to make sure that you get that aligned and that one aligned up top before you tighten the bolt, or before you push this in all the way even. And then the process is the same. I'm just going to swing the skid plate up and we're going to bolt this on, same as we have with everything else. So once we've got the upper stuff on the crash bars bolted together, we can bolt the lower sections here into the skid plate, and then we can snug this up. We want to make sure that we do get these installed before we tighten this, because this is getting pinched. You won't be able to rotate. In your kit, there will be a piece of paper. There will likely be a QR code. If there's a QR code, please scan it. Follow the link. If we have any changes to the kit, if there's any important information that you need to know, if we've changed fastener lengths or spacer styles or anything like that, if there's any changes, we will communicate that through the QR code and the link. We're not going to do a new install video every time we have a minor change. So please, when you get it, there's a reason that it says read me. The number of people that we get emails from that are asking questions that are covered in the paperwork in the kit. Any changes, I know that most people aren't reading it. Do us both a favor, please. It will save you a bunch of time and make your install go a lot smoother if you view the most up-to-date information, which is through the QR code. As always, if you have any questions, info@camel-adv.com. Thanks for watching.